No-sew repairs for holes and tears. Clips from Austin Resource Recovery's Fix It at Home online repair series.
So first step, we have a tear in our fabric like this. I'm going to need for this, I'm going to need an iron because I want to iron out my fabric flat and make sure that that tear isn't warped in any way. And I'm also that iron in order to use fusible interfacing. So this was on this supply as an optional supply list. What this is you can get it at a lot of fabric stores. You can also get it online if you search fusible interfacing. There's a ton of different types, a ton of different kinds, but major fabric stores will carry it. And you'd probably be looking for something called a medium weight or a lightweight fusible interfacing. Now, what is interfacing? It's used in, if you've ever flipped out a jacket collar and seen something with like gray fused kind of funky fabric and it's like glued into your fabric, that's what this is. It helps stabilize fabric. And it's a great thing to use for quick repairs because all you need is an iron to stick it right on. This is fabric on one side, and then our small glue dots on the other side. So you do want to take care to know which side is the fabric side, which is just smooth, and which side is the glue side, which tends to be rougher. And I'll show you another version where the glue might be a little more obvious. This is another version that's very see-through, very lightweight. This would be great if you're trying to repair like a see-through blouse or something like that. You want to try and match. It does only come in white and black. You want to try and match the value of your color. So if it's a darker value, like a dark red or a dark blue, dark black, something like that, then black is going to be great. It's going to go on the inside of your fabric. If you're trying to match a lighter, then of course you're going to want to look for the white. And it's not the perfect repair for everything, but it's great in a pinch for sure. So this one has the glue on this side, and you can kind of see little white dots. And the other side is just fabric. And so I have my little iron board set up here. I'm going to start my iron. And I have these two tears. And I want to make sure that they're as flat as possible so I can kind of push them back together. So iron that down. Another thing that can be really helpful when you're using fusible interfacing, doing a lot of repairs, I really like having a pair of small scissors. These are actually larger than I would usually use. But something with a small snipping that you can trim extra threads from. You can see here there's extra threads hanging down out of this, which is common when you have a tear in clothing. So I'm going to try and trim some of those extra threads and make sure you can actually see what I'm doing. So I've tried to trim out some of them so it's a smoother cut in between. I'm not opening up the cut any further. I'm not trying to make it larger. I'm trying to just, as minimally as possible, remove extra threads. And this is something you're going to do in most of the fixes that I'm talking about today. And I think most of the time when you're trying to repair something, unless you want that kind of frayed look, then you're trying to remove those extra threads. So I've removed my extra threads. I have ironed my fabric. And if this were my clothes, I would put the right side down. So let's say it's a patterned shirt. The pattern side is going down on the ironing board. So I'm looking at the reverse. I'm looking at the back side of my fabric because I don't want to apply my patch to the right side when I'm using this fusible interfacing. I've already cut out a piece of my fusible interfacing and I'm using white. If this were my linen shirt, I would absolutely be using black because I want it to match. But I'm using white on this so you can see what I'm doing. And I've pressed the piece together as much as I can. So it's really quite close together. And that was a great reason to also use the iron to make sure that it's as flat as possible. I'm then, the patch that I cut out also, I can tell this side that I have facing you is the glue side because it's rough. And this is the smooth side. So I want the smooth side to go up. And I want it to be a little bit bigger than my hole. So this one actually is quite a bit bigger. That's fine. No problem. It's not getting in the way of anything. But I don't want it to be just really tiny, like the size of the hole, because then it could just all come apart again soon. So I want a good 1/2 inch around my hole as much as I can give. I also have cut a patch that is rounded or an oblong shape because I want to make sure that I don't have hard edges on this patch. It prevents the fabric from creeping right along the edge of the patch on the back of your fabric. It's not as noticeable when you cut a patch with a rounded edge, which is why you might see if you buy an iron-on patch from a store that they do tend to have a lot of the time rounded edges. So I've put the glue side down on the wrong side of my fabric. Again, the right side would be this side that is on top. My fabric is facing me the wrong way, the underside of my garment. And then I've put the glue side down onto this. So this is smooth and this is the wrong side of the fabric. Now I can just put my iron on top of this and hold it for a second. It'll glue itself onto the fabric. I do like to note this is, of course, a permanent thing. You can get it off actually a lot of the time, but this is something that you want to do a practice on maybe if you're really unsure if you want to do this to your garment. But I tend to do this if I have a really small hole in like a dress shirt that I don't want to try and stitch up and I feel like it's going to look messier. If I have a hole in pants and I want to get that hole closed so that maybe I can put a bigger patch on top of it, you know, inner thighs of jeans, knees on jeans. This is a great way to get that closed up quickly so that you then can do further repairs if you need to, or if you use a heavyweight interfacing, you might not even need anything else beyond that. So I hope that explains some of the uses of this. I am going to put a piece of cloth over this, and then iron, just so that I'm not ironing directly on top. Now, I'm going, most interfacings, when you buy them in the store, their package will have an instruction, or online you can look up instructions, and it will say 10 to 15 seconds, medium high heat iron, or the highest heat that your fabric can take. This is linen, it can take high heat, but if I was ironing like a nylon shirt or a polyester shirt, I would not put the heat up this high because I would not want to melt my shirt. But I'm going to put that iron on for just a minute, 15 seconds, 10, 15 seconds. Come it off, pull it off, and then I leave it for a second. I'm not going to touch it while it's still hot, of course. And then I can kind of check, do the edges of this pull up? Do the edges of the patch pull up? They're pretty well glued on, so I think I'm good. And now that I've done that, you can see this is no longer torn. If this were black, we couldn't see through it anymore. If it were a really small hole, we wouldn't be able to really see it at all. Because it's a larger hole and I've used the white, you can definitely see it. But it's not coming apart further, and I could do whatever else I needed to make sure that I cover this up later. So if I wanted to stitch around it or stitch over it, I can go ahead and do that. But this tear is not going to increase, which is a really important thing. As soon as you notice a tear, as soon as you notice a hole, mark it, do what you can to fix it, so that it's not going to keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger. So this is a great fix for something like pants. Or if you start to notice that your fabric is thinning, maybe under arms, in between, like on your knees, on your legs, places that get worn really, really frequently while you are using your clothing. Those types of places, as soon as you can hold them up to the light and start seeing through them, this is a great time to take a piece of fusible interfacing and apply it, or go ahead and stitch on a patch if you want, if that's something that you're comfortable doing, because that's going to reinforce your fabric.
Thank you for watching.